Yeah, so I came on a little after the 11 o'clock advisory. I think they have a 2 o'clock advisory. But again, I don't think it's going to be much of a change. The strength is probably still going to be about 155, and it may go up. But the way it's going to, it looks like the eye and eye wall is going to be over the Gulf, but some of the clouds are going to be as it turns. It's going to interact with the Yucatan Peninsula, which may disrupt it a little bit. They also forecast, I saw that it might hit some wind shear, which the storm doesn't like. That's why I think they predict that it's going to come down a little bit. But if it's a 5, it's going to come down to a 4. That's not much. It's not much of a difference. It's still devastation. So I'm going to keep beating the dead horse. You have to get out. If you're in Sanibel, Captiva, St. Pete, anywhere along the coast, anywhere along the water, anywhere along the water, probably give yourself at least a mile inland. And if you're on one of those islands, get off altogether. Get out of there. Some of them got one bridge in, one bridge out. You can't be there. You can't be there. Mandatory evacuations. You just saw the storm surge of the last storm, right? You can't, you can't withstand them. You gotta go. I'll show you my, hold on. It's the weather I'm dealing with right now. You got some, they're saying we've had overcast and rain practically all day. All morning and all day so far. And they say it's not associated with the storm in Mexico. It's something else. So I'm just listening to the news, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know when the next advisory comes out. I don't know if it's 2 o'clock. But please, I'm going to continue to come on. Please evacuate. A lot of people like to wait to the last minute, but then you're stuck. I see it all the time. You go to leave, there's no gas available. All the gas has been sucked out of the gas stations, and they're not bringing in any replacement fuel. They're not going to bring in hundreds of thousands of gallons of fuel and risk that it gets damaged by storm surge if it's not all gone. So it's the people that run these gas stations, they're going to be leaving too. They're not going to be sticking around. They got family. And the people at these gas stations, once the gas is gone, they're packing up and leaving, bro. They're not sticking around. So don't wait. If you have a 5-gallon gas tank, you have a 5-gallon. Now, this is another tip. If you go to a gas station and you're going to fill your car up, and you have a legal, safe gas container, I have about 6 of them, 5 gallons, because I have 2 generators. If you're going to be if you're going to be somewhere where there's going to be a natural disaster, if you can, when you're filling up your car, fill up one of the gas containers. Give yourself an extra 5 gallons. So if you have to evacuate, or when you do evacuate, you got some extra gas in your back pocket. Because I've seen and experienced it firsthand where people filled up, took off, and they went to other areas as they're evacuating. They're evacuating the same way everyone else is evacuating, right? And guess what happened? The stations that they were going to were out of gas too. So if you have an extra 5 gallons, you can put that in your tank, and it can get you a little bit farther. And I hate to look at this. All these cars are blocking up traffic, but they're not supposed to because of the school. Ridiculous. All these cars blocking the road to pick their kids up from school. I'm just listening.
But not as severely as some of the Gulf Coast area.
Yeah.
Patrick is a truck driver from Omaha, but he's on the road near Indianapolis. What's going on, Patrick?
Good morning, John. I was listening to Peter Gibson, our senator, and I actually have a bit of a different perspective on
I'm just listening to the
electoral votes.
electoral vote. I care about no electoral votes. I care about the storm. We see the trek. People gotta go. You gotta go. I'm gonna keep beating the dead horse to death. You gotta go. What else is another tip? Batteries. You know, a lot of the things they talk about is really if you're gonna stay, you know, if you're gonna stay and try to get through the storm, yeah, you need batteries. You need, you know, back in the day we had candles, right? We had candles. We had batteries, and we had a backup phone. A lot of people don't have phone lines anymore, but we used to carry a phone, a battery operated radio. It's so funny, but if you're looking out the car, oh my God, look at the rain. Look at the rain. We're about to hit the rain. Can you see it in the distance along the road? Right? Right. It's not caused by some other tropical disturbance. They're saying this rain and this weather is not caused by Milton. Milton's too far west. You know what's crazy is that you'll see an aerial view of that when the hurricane hits the west coast of Florida. Part of it is going to be all the way across the state on the east side. It's going to be out over the Atlantic. Because Florida is only like 100 miles wide. I mean, from maybe a little bit wider in different parts. But talking about from Miami to Naples, it's like 100 yards. I mean, 100 miles. You know, from Tampa to Daytona, something like that. I don't know. Might be farther. But it's, you know, you're going to see it. You're going to see a part of the storm in the Gulf and part of the storm rotating over land and over the Atlantic. That'll be pretty wild. But whenever it comes, I'm going to live stream. I'm going to put up a camera on my front porch, and you'll have a good shot of whatever's happening in front of my house. I would imagine imagine a Cat 5 or a Cat 4 or a big Cat 3. We're gonna get some wind and rain. How strong the winds are gonna be. I mean, when Helene went by, it was 375 miles away, and when it went by, we were having tropical storm winds in Broward County, and we were over 300 miles from the center. So I would imagine this is going to be closer. And we're on the what we call, I'm going to call it the strong side of the storm. You know, see, normally we're used to in South Florida, Broward, you know, when a storm comes at us off the Atlantic, anything on the north side of the eye is called the dirty side, and that's going to be the stronger side, because the wind, the way the storm rotates, this is different. We're going to be in this storm. We're going to be, if it crosses over the state around Tampa, the south side, the south, west, east, that's going to be the strong side. Because the wind, the way the storm rotates, right, counterclockwise, imagine, take a picture and you see it rotating counterclockwise, and those bands are going to come in off the Gulf and rotate towards land, so it pushes the water inland on the south side of the storm, and then around the eye you're going to get tremendous storm surge. But to the north of the storm, north of Tampa, or north of the eye, so I'll just say north of Tampa, they're not going to get as much storm surge as Helene. Okay, you're not going to get that much. It's just the way the storm rotates. So at the top of the storm, it's going to be more. There'll be some storm surge, but not like the bottom. I think I just saw where they're forecasting 10 to maybe 10 feet of storm surge around where the eye is. So if that eye goes in around Tampa, or over Tampa, you know, you got the bay, Tampa Bay and all that, it's going to be a big mess. You're going to have a big mess. And that's a worst case scenario. One of the worst case scenarios is a major hurricane, a Cat 4, Cat 5, a strong Cat 3, hits a major city. Because you're going to have extensive damage. I mean, you may not be seeing the, like the governor's been giving updates, and they're basically saying, you know, you got to go. You really got to go. You can't mess around. So hopefully people will heed these warnings. You know, a lot of people don't, and they lose their lives when they could have done something about it. My dad is one. He's 79. He lives in a mobile home, and he's ready to go down with the ship. And I'm like, senseless, you know. So we went through like a little squall there, right? People might say, hey, Abe, where you going? Where you going, Abe? I'm going to go see a patient. You know, I've been working. sick. People need medication. People need care. They're at home, and there's first responders like myself who have to go. I have a wife and kid. You know, I have a wife and kid, but I have, and I'm doing my, my wife's a nurse, and she's required by her job that if a hurricane were to come to our area, she has to go into work. She has no choice, right? A first responder. If something happens, I gotta go. And what do? We bring I bring my son with me, or my wife brings my son with her, and we work. And I come from every one of my family are first responders. My mom, she's a nurse. My wife's aunt's a nurse. My brother and his partner they're both first responders. My other brother, he's a lieutenant, police officer. We're all on alert. Like, my whole family's on alert. When stuff like this happens, even though it's looking pretty good for us, right? When something like this happens, and they go into a state of emergency, my life gets upended, and because I'm trying to take care of what's going on around the house, make sure that we have the provisions that we need, and then we're getting emails constantly. We're getting email constantly from the Florida Department of Health about shelters that are opening up, and they have specific shelters. They have shelters that are for people with mental issues, mental health issues. We have shelters that are for the elderly. We have shelters that are for the for people with animals. They're very specific now with these shelters, because in the past they wouldn't let you bring your pets. You had to leave your pets behind. Now they have shelters that open up for people with pets. Shelters, especially for the senior citizens. How does power get restored? I get asked that question a lot. The question I get a lot is, how do they determine the power? Okay. Well, when we lose power during a storm, it is with places that are connected to, like they have grids, right? Like if they, a lot of places now have generators. A lot of places over the years we've had storms, like the assisted living facilities now are mandated to have generators. Some of the gas stations, I think, now all have generators. Hospitals have generators, right? So, but when they go to restore power, hold on. Sorry, I had to check something. So now, when they start to restore power, they go by the grids, and I think hospitals come first, police stations, stuff like that, right? Things that take high priority. That's how power is restored, right? So if you're lucky enough, sometimes if you're in the right grid, if you're on the same grid as the hospital or something like that, you might get your power back pretty fast. Like they don't mess around. But one time I didn't have power for 10 days. My dad, where he lived, he was without power for 2 months. I'm sorry, 3 months. He lived with me for 3 months. because we had concrete poles that got knocked over, and what they did was they had looked like the National Guard was going around every day and dropping off ice, box lunch. I forget what they call it, emergency meal kits, EMCs or something like that. But what was cool, I never experienced like that. You opened it up, and the box had some type of shelf-stable milk that once you opened it, you had to drink it. Something with electrolytes, and they had Chef Boyardee that had like these little sterno cans attached to them, and you popped open the lid on the Chef Boyardee, and then you pulled this sterno. You pulled this little cord, and it fired up, and within I'm telling you, in less than a minute, the sucker was boiling, man, percolating hot. And the warning was don't be holding this in your hand when you do it. And chips and stuff, and they delivered that every day. A National Guard truck went by every day and was handing them out to people. And but my dad wasn't there. We experienced that twice. We went over to his house to make sure everything was okay, but he had no power for 3 months. And this is why I don't own an electric car. I haven't even thought about getting an electric car, right? Because what do you do if you can't charge at home? You got to go find a place to charge. There's not a lot of them, and I've been at a Wawa, which has those 8 or 9 of those superchargers, and they're full all the time. Every time you go by there's a car. They're sitting there. And I walked over one day, and someone was standing outside their car having a cigarette. And I go, just to ask you a question, how long does it take to charge this car of yours? He told me it takes 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes. And I'm like, wow. And that's the problem, right? You can go in and get gas, and you can get a splash of gas, and you're out in 5 minutes. But this is the problem, right? And that's another conversation to have. But when you live in these areas of the country that are prone to natural disasters, and you lose power, and you lose, how do you? A lot of those people don't want electric cars, right? Because we're scared. If you live in South Florida, there is a lot of electric cars. You see them. I see a lot of Cybertrucks around. I see the Teslas. But a lot of people are nervous because they're afraid if they have a natural disaster and the electrical grid goes down, how are we going to charge cars? How are we going to charge our vehicles? At least, like I told you, we can store gas. We can fill up our car, and then we get, I have 6 gas cans, legal gas cans that hold 5 gallons apiece, and I fill them up this time of year, and I put them in the garage, safekeeping, or out in a well-ventilated area, right? So in case something like this happens, I can, if the gas stations lose power, at least we have these backup gas cans I can pour into the car. Now what they do is there'll be certain stations that are for first responders, or if you go to a certain gas station, they may have everyone lining up in one entrance to get in, but they may have 2 pumps reserved for first responders. Then you got to show your ID, which I have, and then they let you in. So because we're seeing patients. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I would say if you're in Fort Lauderdale like I am, I think we're pretty well. I think they know where this storm's going because we haven't had any. I haven't had any communication from the schools about about the schools being closed or the potential. I haven't had any of that. Usually, and we haven't had any of the cities putting out bulletins. Most of the bulletins I've been getting from the state of Florida are for people in the central Florida area. People who, Tampa, Orlando, places like that. Those are most of the bulletins that I've been getting. So, I think they're pretty confident of where the storm's going. So their prediction's pretty confident. But I heard today, I haven't heard the 2 o'clock advisory, but they're pretty well certain. Somewhere in anywhere between Tampa, south to Fort Myers, and north to, I don't know, maybe Perry. That area has got to be on high alert. And then inland, Orlando, someone said Disney World has issued a state of emergency. I don't know about that. But please, everyone stay safe. And you need to evacuate. You just have to evacuate. And it's the best thing to do. I've heard people say they're coming from Tampa down here to South Florida, down to Fort Lauderdale, Weston, staying with relatives. So we'll see. But I have to go see my patient, make sure they're okay, make sure they have supplies. This is what I'm doing, right? I go around, I see someone, I got to make sure that their medication's been ordered. And this is what a first responder does prior to, because we're in a state of emergency, maybe there's a hurricane coming. I'm about to go in to see my patient, and I'm gonna find out if they have enough medication. If something were to happen, do you have a week's worth of medication? Do you have 2 weeks worth of medication? Do you have, if you're doing wound care, do you have enough bandages? Do you have enough gauze? Do you have enough ointment? Do you have everything you need to take care of that wound? And what they'll do is, I'll be able to order it, but instead of waiting for it, they'll open up areas in Broward, in Dade, where first responders can go and pick it up. Well, there's a potential. Man, what's happening? What's up, QQ? There's the potential of a major hurricane about to hit Florida that could cause a major catastrophe. If you have a 4 or 5 hurricane, it's a major catastrophe. When Hurricane Andrew hit South Florida, it was years. It took 2, 3, 4 years to recover. It wiped out houses. It wiped out office buildings. And it takes a long time. And some things don't come back. It'll be the last time you ever went to a place, because then the building gets sold and it becomes something else. But I gotta go. I go see my patient. I'll be back.